Hello, everyone. Welcome to Your Next Stop Live. This is Juliette Hahn with my guests who are waiting to get on their video. David, I just sent you a invite to video mode. Hold on one second. This is live here on Fireside. I hope everyone is good. Welcome to the new year. I think this is my first show for the new year. I know David and Erin are coming up. So my guests today are David Richman and Erin Hiley. David has written the book Cycle of Lives. You guys have seen him on here before, but you've also, if you have not listened to his episode, it is episode 179, and you can go to Your Next Stop on any of your podcast players. You can also go to my website, which is IamJulietteHahn.com, and you can listen to David's whole story. Very, very impactful, very amazing, very heartfelt, very lots of pivots in David's story. And he is on today's episode with his wife, Erin, because hold on one second. I want to get the perspective of when David was writing this book, what the perspective of Erin have. David, so I sent you a video mode. You can also, I'm thinking that you're having a hard time with that. No stress. Don't stress. If you also go to those two lines at the bottom, I know you probably don't want to touch your phone, but if you go to the two lines at the bottom, you can also click video mode. But that's where I'm sending you an invite to video mode. And so you're probably going to have to touch your phone again. Sorry. I know that's not what you want to do. As David and Erin are getting up here, I just want to take you guys through a little bit of David's story with Cycle of Lives. So David rode his bike for 5,000 miles, and he's going to explain it was in a really short amount of time. I mean, there was days that he rode for 17 hours through crazy heat, through storms, there's one scene in the book that I just was like in awe of. He was on a bridge that had a very small basically lane, and you shouldn't have been riding your bike. And the trucks were going so fast. He actually had to jump and pull his bike up because he almost got hit. So it's intense. I listened to his book because it is on Audible, and it's a beautifully written, beautiful stories. David, I know you're probably like freaking out. I don't know. I'm going to text you, but literally don't freak out. I sent you. So if you click on those two little lines, I think the app is a little slow is what we're finding today. I did invite you to video mode, so it might take a moment. But so David, so that is part of it. But the Cycle of Lives book is about David's and other people's journeys with cancer. David's sister, June, passed away from brain cancer, and it embarked him on this curiosity about what it is like behind the scenes for the family members and the people, how to kind of navigate that world. And he became very curious. So he started talking to people, started talking with, people in basically the doctor world and the medical world, the medical world, about what their journey is. And then he was connected with people and he would talk to them about their stories. And then he got this idea, I'm going to ride 5,000 miles he lives in California, from California to Miami up to New York. And on that ride, he was going to be talking to some of the people that he interviewed for the book and talking to people along the way. And the amount of connections that he made and the amount of curiosity and brought so much stuff up for people was pretty amazing. And so then he wrote this beautiful book, and his wife, Erin, was with him during the way. So she would stop and help, but Erin also has this big career. So David, I'm thinking that it's still not working, but it did take us a couple minutes. I'm going to invite you to speak, and then we're going to try to put you on video. Can you hear me? Let's see. If you can hear me, if you can click the little react at the bottom, you'll see like the little hearts. I know you probably don't want to touch your phone, but or if anyone in the audience, like Randall, Stacy, if you guys can hear me, can you guys do like a little clap? Or is this also delayed for you guys? I know, welcome everyone on wherever you're listening? Okay, great. So it's not delayed for you guys. All right. So David, you'll be up. Oh, you can hear me. Okay. So those two little lines, if you click on it, it will say go to video mode and then you can jump on stage. And so we can do it that way as well. But and take your time. This is not, this is a live show. This happens with live shows. So anyone that is not familiar with Your Next Up, there we are. Your Next Stop Live. I am the host, Juliette Hahn. I also have segments here that are with the NFL thread. We have one next week coming up, and we're also going to be broadcasting live. And I guess, David, your video is not up yet, but we're going to be broadcasting live at the Super Bowl, and that will be coming up. So stay tuned. So David, can you hear me? Can you talk? Let me hear if I can hear you. Fireside's really messing with us today. Okay, let's see. Your microphone is not muted, right? You're not muted. It says you're on video. I don't see you on video. Let me text. I'm going to bring up the music for a couple minutes, everyone. Stay tuned. We're going to get this working. But I'm just going to bring up a little music just to give everyone a moment. David, can you talk? I don't know why I can't hear you. I just emailed. Oh. Okay, I can't hear you though. You guys are not muted though, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. I do not know what's going on.
Wait, I already pressed the X.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, can you hear me and see me?
I can hear you and see you.
Okay, so sorry, the app's a little glitchy, and every time we touch anything, it's just taking an extra time, so we're good. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, I'm so sorry too. Okay, hold on. I think we're good. Erin, I'm glad that your thing got canceled. Now, okay, is that better for you guys to have it that way, or do you want to put it the long way?
We would like to put it this way.
Yes, but it'll take a minute. So give it a
Okay.
second.
Yeah, no, it's there. I see it. I see it that way. Okay. So we're going to start again. Welcome to your next stop live. This is Juliette Hahn here live in Fireside. My guests are David Richman and Erin Hiley. And David is the author of Cycle of Lives. Is it glitchy for you guys? Can you are you hearing me real time now?
Perfectly.
Perfectly,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Great. Steph, thank you for jumping in. We figured it out. It just was probably took them 15 minutes to get in. So I don't know if something was slow today. Okay. So as I was sending people, I was talking and talking, trying to help you guys behind the scenes. David's book, Cycle of Lives, but David was on Your Next Stop podcast, which is 179. So you can go to any of the any of the podcast players, and you guys can catch David's episode. He can take you through his life and then how Cycle of Lives came about. But we're going to touch on that a little bit. But first, I would like to introduce his wife, Erin. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Erin, I would love for you to just give a little background about who you are, what you do, and then we're going to dive into how you supported David through this book and the bike ride.
Sure. You already said my name's Erin. I'm an attorney. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I'm currently the chief legal officer of a pretty large healthcare company. I've been a litigator in my spare time, and my passion is mentoring youth in Los Angeles.
I love that. I love that. And David, do you guys mind sharing a little bit of how you guys met? Is that PG that we can talk about?
Oh, sure. So I was about 10 years out of a very bad failed marriage, and I had twins, a boy and a girl that were just about entering high school, something like that, right around then. And I had a really good friend of mine who I had known for many, many years, and he called me up one day, drunk dialed me on a Saturday saying, "Hey, you got to come over, man. We're throwing a party, and I got my cousin here, and you got to meet her." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think so." And so a couple hours later, Drunker dialed me and said, "Man, you better get over here now. You're losing your opportunity." So I said, "All right." So I went over to this party. It was only about 5 or 6 people by then, and I went in reluctantly, and I saw Erin, and it was a interesting first meeting, and then we had a pretty good first date and a miserable second date, and all due to it was all me, and I just she was the first person in my life that I dated that wasn't a train wreck, or that I didn't seek out to try to like fix a problem or whatever. She had her stuff together and was pretty awesome, and I was just like, this is the kind of woman you want. Why don't you act differently? Why don't you chase what you want instead of wasting time with what you don't want? And I finally just gave into it, and she gave me a chance, and here we are, married and happy 8 years later.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love it because, again, bringing everyone back to episode 179, you'll get an insight of David wanting to fix and the stuff that he's, gone through in his life. So I love that for the first time you met someone stable, and it, probably felt really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know what to do with this.
Oh, I had no idea. Right? I had no idea. I'm just like, man, oh man, like she doesn't need me. What? I don't need to fix anything. What? Oh my God, that was awesome. But no, she's amazing. So I'm
I
very
love
lucky.
that. So Erin, okay, so I want to take from your perspective, since a lot of the audience probably knows David's, with the Cycle of Lives, but when he came to you and said, "I want to ride 5,000 miles across the United States to connect with these people that I have in the book," what were your initial thoughts?
I think I had competing thoughts. I mean, first was I don't even understand the concept of biking 5,000 miles. Like that magnitude of miles doesn't even make sense, right? How do you do that? And is this guy crazy? And then the other part was, wow, this is so amazing. You're going to bike the United States and you're going to meet these people that you've been talking to for a couple years. This sounds like an really amazing project, and you must be a really incredible guy.
Right. And so how long into your first meeting did this all come about?
It wasn't very long into our first meeting that he told me about it, but the bike ride was a little ways off. He was just in the process of starting to interview people, which was an experience in itself watching him do that.
Right, right. And also, I mean, when you say the second date was a disaster, was it around that second date that he came up and told you this idea?
No, he saved it for after a good date, and when he felt pretty comfortable, he could let me know how crazy he was.
Right, that's good. Right, you save it for a little bit, and then it's like, oh, and then I have this idea. Well, David, if you can just take again, for the listeners that are listening, we're live here on LinkedIn, we are on YouTube, we're on Twitch. If you can just kind of let everyone know. In just short, because I want people also to go back and listen to 179 just a little bit about your sister got diagnosed with brain cancer, and then when you decided to write this book and a little bit about the background.
Sure. So Juliet, just at a low point in my life, I'm overweight, I'm a smoker, I'm not athletic. I've got two young twins that, them and I are now kind of off on our own, trying to figure out who we are. They were about 4 years old at the time. I just decided I wanted to stop being overweight, stop being a smoker, stop self-sabotaging. And I just said, okay, what are you going to do to change your life? And I kind of felt for the first time I had this long road ahead of me to figure out who I was going to be and what I was going to get out of life. And it was super invigorating. And at that time, almost at the same time, I got the call from my sister saying that she had terminal brain cancer. And so where my journey was endless and full of hope and inspiration and transformation and discovery, at the same time, her life, which was pretty set, she was pretty happy, good family, good career, really comfortable with who she was. Her journey was going to be very short, and that kind of created a pretty wild dynamic where it was really eye-opening on a number of different levels. And a couple of years into her journey, when it was getting close to the end for her, I really started to notice, Juliet, this dynamic of people were really good about dealing with the tasks around their cancer. How do I get to chemo, and how do I find a doctor, and how do I eat better, that kind of stuff. But when it came to the emotional aspects of it, people were just not well equipped to start those hard conversations. And so I thought to myself, after June died, maybe I didn't have the answers, but I'd like to find out what people can give us some insight into that dynamic, because I was really pulled into that aspect of it, and I wanted to see if I could investigate why is it that we have a hard time having really tough discussions about the emotional side of cancer, any kind of trauma really, especially if it involves or potentially could involve death. That's when we really try to isolate and we abandon people around those kind of conversations. So that was the genesis of the book. Real quick, I went off on a journey to find really amazing, inspirational, evocative people who had just fantastic, engaging stories, doctors, patients, loved ones, survivors, whatever. And if they bought into the idea of going as deep as we could go to answer some of those questions, like explain to us why you were able to or why you weren't able to converse with people around the emotional side, by giving the reader some insight into their lives and the story and the limiters and all of those other things that maybe we might then take those lessons home, and when we come across a situation in our lives, we might be a little bit better equipped to have those conversations. So that's the short version, if I can.
Yeah, no. And so Erin, is that the version that he gave you?
He gave me a longer version, but yeah, that's the version. And
Right.
and I had just the concept of connecting humans through storytelling.
Right. Which when David, his PR people actually contacted me, and when David and I had our first conversation, I think it was supposed to be 15 minutes just to make sure he fit on the podcast. And I feel like we talked for an hour and then was like, wait, I need to have you on. And then I need to have you on again. And wait, I need to have you on again, because I am the same way. I am so passionate about stories and people connecting with stories. And it's just it really makes people better when you relate to someone or someone that has gone through something. It just brings the humanity into it instead of just making it a body. And that's what I think sometimes the world is missing, and especially with everyone being so busy. I know COVID slowed things down, but then things, took off in a different world. And I think more people need to listen and think and dive into others' stories. So that's why, I mean, David and I connected so much, but then that's also why I think when I came to him and said, listen, I want to also have Erin on. Do you think she would join? And he said yes, but then he was like, wait, take me through this. And when I explained to him why I wanted to have you on, because I wanted to get your perspective of what it was like watching, your husband go through this. And because you guys met after June passed, from what I understand, right?
Correct.
Right. So then watching him kind of bring all of this up, that's hard. That's hard as a spouse, because it's also like, okay, you're bringing, and I'm going to put words into your mouth, and this is what I want you to kind of converse on. But like, okay, this is going to be hard. You're bringing up emotions. You're talking about emotional stuff. This is bringing stuff up that maybe you don't need to bring up because this is in the past. So I would love for you to kind of take us through when David brought this to you, and then when it started kind of coming into fruition, the thoughts and feelings you were having.
Yeah. Well, when he brought it up, I think the crazy part was the bike ride, right? I mean, how do you get your mind around that? But really, what you're talking about, that emotional journey for David, that didn't really, I don't think I had a good reflection on that until we really went through the process, because David was focused on everyone else's story. And he may have said this to you before, but everyone he talked to said, my story's not interesting. And at one point I looked at David, he's like, oh, the book, there's going to be no part of me in the book. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I don't have a story. My story's not interesting. And so what I think I saw was him exploring all of this without realizing that this was a part of his journey also. And it's not just telling other people's stories, it's connecting yourself in those stories. But I don't think that came through until he got to Florida.
That's amazing. Because I mean, I listened to the book and I said to David, I've shared with you earlier, Erin, I am dyslexic. So like, I don't sit and read books. It's not like something that's fun for me. I get like real sleepy and tired. It takes me a little while, but I love listening because I love stories. I mean, I'm like, it's embedded into me. It's communications and, just connecting with people. And so the art of storytelling is something that I just love. So I love listening to stories. And so when David said, I always ask like a guest, and I don't like to listen before. I always like to listen afterwards if it's something that connects me. And I said, do you have an Audible? And he said, I do. And thank you for asking, because, the Audible, I really put a lot of work into. It's, got this great cast. And I shared with him, there was times where I was driving around my block to like finish up, one of the chapters, because I was so in it and so just amazed. And I loved how he intertwined his story. I don't know if you guys heard me, but at the beginning, the one thing on the bridge, I mean, I pictured that where he had to pick the bike up and like, totally could have died. And he was doing this, in honor of other people. It just shows you who he is, his heart, his mind, and it just really gave you an insight of the kind of person he is. So I love that you said that. And so where, as you were going through it, as he started talking about the journey, were you seeing him grow as time was going, like as he was driving, riding his bike across?
Absolutely. And I'll start with when he was interviewing. David had I wouldn't listen to him interviewing. Those were very private conversations, but I'd be around the house and sometimes I'd hear a question and I'd think, oh my God, you cannot ask somebody that. Right. And I know he had to get outside of himself to go that deep and get that connection with people. But once we got to the bike ride, it was, I would say, this was not about me and I did nothing that special, but I definitely watched him and it had, reactions and, kind of recorded what was going on in my mind and had my own feelings. It was definitely a journey for him and for us.
Right. And I know you said that it wasn't part, but you supporting him, because I know he even talked about it in the book, the times that you were there, when you had to pick up the car from different locations from when a friend, and, you have, again, a big career. So you were juggling a lot of stuff as well. And so for you to be there, I'm sure also meant that he knew that you saw him and that you supported him through that. Can you both kind of touch on that?
Well, I don't know what he saw, but in the beginning, I saw him fixing his bike in the middle of the street. I'm like, what are you doing? You're gonna die. You're gonna die out here. So I don't know if that gave him any awareness or if it annoyed him to no end.
Right, and it's equal parts unselfish and equal parts selfish, right? I really like the idea of, like, I didn't want to be a storyteller. I wanted the reader to connect with these people's life stories, right? So I really, it's a really tough thing, Juliet. Imagine anybody that's gone through something as traumatic as, I don't know, suicide of a family member, drug addiction, incarceration, super crazy health issue like potentially cancer or losing somebody. I mean, these are heavy, heavy things. And when people were willing to uncover every aspect of it on an emotional level and share it with people so that they could be touched to bring that to their own lives, that was a heck of a burden. It's also a little bit unselfish, right? But it's a heck of a burden because I have to do it right. I want to, if they're willing to show the story, I got to bring the story. So there was that seriousness to it. But on the other side, it's a little selfish of me. I need the help. I'm taking the time away. It's like I'm making it all about me. And part of it is like, I don't want the help. And part of it is I really want the help because I feel guilty for asking you to give up everything for my little thing. And, so there's a lot of aspects of it. But thankfully, Erin was not judgy at all. Maybe the first day.
Oh yeah. He didn't tell me. He didn't prepare me at all. Right. The first day he stopped. He's on the 5. We're still in California, and he just hands me some bottles. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I have my nails done. I'm like, what is going on here? But it went from day to day. I got used to that really quickly. But I have to say, I alternated between days where I would be almost crying with, I don't know if it was pride or just emotion that a human being would be going through the things that he and his son went with him in the beginning, that they would go through, and just the physical exertion for this really altruistic and beautiful cause, to some days being like, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? I cannot be with you. Like,
well, I pushed it I pushed it really hard, and to have someone in my life that actually cared about me and wasn't like saying they cared or what. I mean, she really cared about me. There were a couple of days where I definitely pushed the limits of what I should have been doing, and we had a couple of minor little battles over that. But I had to keep going, and I had a daily mission to accomplish, and I couldn't stop doing that. And that caused a little bit of friction, but it also caused a little bit of understanding that sometimes you don't have to understand, you just have to be there.
Right. And I mean, I think, just as I'm like just smiling, picturing the whole thing, because again, you guys, Cycle of Lives is the book. It's right here in the scroll. You can see, you can go to David dash, oh my God, I can't even say dash Richmond, and you can get the book. It's one of the best books. And I, again, said this to David, like, I am not someone that, takes things lightly. I don't give people praise where they don't deserve praise, but I was impressed. I connected with every single one of his characters, but not only every single one of I shouldn't say characters, but every one of the people in the books, every chapter. But I also connected with David because you saw what David was going through. And then people like Erin, that's why I wanted to have Erin on, just knowing, okay, there's these people behind that are supporting him. I need to know them as well because I want to know about their stories. I want to know about what, continued to push you guys to do this. And it's such a beautiful thing. And knowing David, again, going back to 179, you guys can listen to that, hearing about who he is and his upbringing and, the kind of person that really he leaves with his heart. I mean, it's very apparent in all of this. It just fascinated me. And so you did a really good job at building and sharing those stories of those people and each individual person. As I said to you, there was times where I was driving and my mouth I'd be crying. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I shared it with so many. Every time I'd be like, who can I share this with? Who can I share this? Everyone needs to hear this or read this book.
That's really sweet, Julia, and thank you for and also thank you for taking the time. I mean, there's a million sources of content out there, and for you to take some time for this it's really touching. So thank you.
Well, I relate to that comment that you made, and I am not the first book he gave me. I'm like, I don't read those kind of books. Like, well, now I do, but I spent a lot of time editing and really working on it. And I pride myself. If my friends saw me cry reading, they would laugh. They'd say, "Who are you?" And like that story of Bobby just brought me to tears when it wasn't even the finished product. So it's hard for me. Right. It's my spouse. It's my husband. But I do agree with you.
No, right. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and who listening, there's not a single person alive, at least that I've ever run across, that doesn't have some bit of understanding of how lonely and isolating it is post and during trauma. And who doesn't understand that idea of, I don't know what to say. Like, so sometimes we think we say the wrong thing. Sometimes we avoid people because we don't want to say the wrong thing. Sometimes it's a very, very tough. We've never run across anybody who doesn't have that situation. And one time I think we're in Texas or something, and I was upstairs trying to take a nap after like a 12-hour day while Erin was grabbing some food down in the lobby, and she was taking forever. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so cranky because I'm so hungry. What's going on? And finally she showed up, and I'm ready to go, like, what the hell, man? Why did it take so long? I'm ready to do that. And she comes up and she's almost crying. And she's like, I was down in the lobby waiting for food. And this woman walked up and we were both small talking. And then it got to what you're doing. And she looked at me and said, this is Erin talking. She looked at me and said, I had a friend today at work whose 4-year-old son was diagnosed with cancer. She goes, and I don't know what the heck to say to her. And Erin's like talking to her back and forth, and it's just every single day, every person that we ran into had some touch point to this idea that what the heck do we say? Like how do we deal with people on an emotional level that are going through something that we just can't understand?
Right. And I mean, how many times I've done it? And I've actually, since I've read your book, I've caught myself or like stopped myself and been like, I'm sorry. Like when you say to someone, hey, how you doing? And you know that they just lost a spouse or they're going through something, you know that they're not doing well, but you don't know what to say. And so sometimes you change it to how you're doing today or how are you doing at this moment? How are you feeling right now? And to make it a little bit more, but it's hard because, right, people don't want to get uncomfortable. You don't want someone to feel bad. And I remember just recently, a classmate of my son's, his father passed away unexpectedly. And I said to them, just say, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. And they both were like, we don't really know him. It would be weird if we said that. And I'm like, it's weird if you don't say anything. It's weird if you don't say anything. And go ahead, Erin.
I have a friend. I met him when I started college, early 90s, and he's got a pretty tough situation and a kid that's got a pretty rare disease, and he found out about it late. And I looked at David. This is after the bike ride. This is after editing his book. This is after everything I learned. And I've known this guy for, 20 plus years. And I said, I really want to call him and see, how things are going. Do you think I should do that? And he's like, yeah. What do I say? He goes, say hi, ask him how he's doing.
Right. It's 'cause it's so hard. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to invade people's personal space. Right. And there's all these dynamics. I mean, and I found that just giving people a safe space to answer a question that they know is authentic. Honest to gosh, last night we were at an event, and after the event there was an after party, and I was waiting for the bartender to pour a glass of wine, and this woman and her daughter were sitting there, and we started some small talk, and they were there celebrating the recent passing of her dad. And her mom had just preceded him in death by a few months, and they've been married for 52 years. And my old me would have been like, what the hell are you doing telling me this? And how can I exit this conversation as quickly as possible? Then maybe the more in tune me would have went, oh, that's a sweet story. That's sad. And then I would have walked away going, what the hell was I supposed to say to that? But I just leaned in and I looked at her and I go, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Were you close to your dad? And she started going off about this stuff and growing up and how, they were married for 52 years and they got to meet all the grandkids and what a great life they had. And she's so thankful for it. And, oh my gosh, why am I telling a stranger this? And I was just like, isn't that cool? Like that you gave somebody a safe space to regurgitate their emotions about something that's so difficult that they would have kept bottled up if I hadn't had the fortune to know that I could lean in and ask, like, oh my gosh, were you close? Because sometimes, Juliet, that question also releases emotion. I was talking to someone who she goes, yeah, one of the hardest things I'm going through right now is I'm taking care of my mom. I'm her caregiver. She's in hospice. And I go, oh my God, that must be tough. And she goes, yeah, because my wish in life is just that she dies before I do. And gosh, and I'm going through a lot of health issues myself. I don't want to die first. And I'm like, wow. Oh my goodness, that's harsh. But at least it gave her a safe space to talk about it.
Right.
Nice to say, man, I'm taking care of my mom. I just hope she dies before I do.
Right. But it's honest and it's truthful.
Yeah.
And that's what, people need to be, sometimes people are too honest and too truthful in other situations. But when it comes to trauma, that is something that, and death, that is important. It always, we've had some friends that, their spouse or kids or someone has suffered for a long period of time, or a parent, and you have them say afterwards, there's a bit of relief, and I feel terrible that I have that relief, but it's that they're not suffering anymore and that we're not going through and it's like a guilt for them, but it's also very natural. It's a natural thing. And the more people talk about it and the more people bring it to light and make it real, it's okay to feel that way. That's part of what you're going through. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm relieved. I'm sad, but I'm relieved. And I'm sure a lot of people go through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's, the good thing too is that, when you're dealing with something this heavy, what's really nice is to know that at least somebody out there cares, somebody understands or is attempting to understand. And, before Erin came along, I wouldn't have believed that, because I didn't have a safe space to talk to somebody about those kind of heavy issues. And I mean, that really, at the end of our lives, isn't that what we wanted? That we had deep connections, that we were able to be understood, and that somebody gave us a chance to understand them. And so it was many aspects of it. And even though with some of the stories and some of the people that they moved on and our relationship is long over, some I'm still very close to. It was a time where two humans could understand each other at such a deep level, and for such a good reason, to uncover, this emotion, the truth behind the emotions of this issue. That I think that's what makes it special, is that like we got each other. We their story mattered, and
right.
That was.
And that you heard them. There's so many things, I think we talked about this before. There's there's listening, and then there's really hearing. And sometimes people don't really hear. And what you did is you brought these stories where people can hear them. So I do want to bring it. Erin, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Nope.
No. Okay. I do want to bring it to the book and talk about some of the chapters. And then I know we'll stay on for about 10 more minutes. Is that okay with your guys' time?
Sure.
Are you sure? Okay. And because I know we started late and all that stuff, so I don't want to continue and then you guys be rushed off and have to run to meetings. I appreciate your guys' time, but so Erin, was there? And I know you talked about Bobby, but was there any other chapter, or we'll start there? Any other chapter that person that really touched you, that you were surprised about?
Well, one in particular, and it was the one on Terry. I went to high school with her. I played basketball with her. And I had no idea some of the things that she was going through, which kind of is an irony because it's a little bit the point of the book, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was very shocking to me and a little emotional. Like, I wasn't the best teammate, the best friend I could be. And wow, just pay attention more in life. So that hit me kind of personally. But I think there was a few stories that had kind of a, for lack of a better word, mystical aspect. And the commonality of that in a random group of people, I think was pretty shocking, right? Jen, I'm not going to, give it away, but the end of Jen's story, the situation with
Deborah.
Deborah, right? With the
Oh yeah.
her struggle with religion, and then the butterflies, yeah.
Butterflies.
Right.
Crazy, right? Crazy stuff.
And you can touch on that a little bit, because that's not going to give it away. It's also going to have people want to listen or read. Again, Cycle of Lives, you will be blown away.
So, I mean, with Deborah, right? You've seen movies, and we hear people talk about a pact with the devil. I've never known anyone that's actually made a pact with the devil, right? And this is an actual thing that she did, and that she believed she did. And I would chalk it up to, oh, she believed she did, until you get to the end, and you're like, oh my God, you made a pact with the devil. Are you kidding me?
Right.
That was just unbelievable. And then, I mean, the butterflies. I don't know who hasn't gone through life and seen some coincidence in nature or something and thought, wow, how could that not be somebody talking to me or giving me a message? And this was a tangible experience that people had with these butterflies and their sister and their mom and their wife, and it was so beautiful.
Yeah,
so beautiful.
So let me talk add to Erin's explanation of Deborah. So super quick is she's a very healthy woman, very athletic, great life, whatever, and she gets breast cancer, and potentially it could spread and kill her. And all she wants to do is live long enough to see her kids out of the house. That's all she wants. And so she is deeply religious. And she, like Erin said, believes. Like, she just made a pact with the devil. She walked out of the church one day, after her diagnosis, and I looked down at the ground and said, "Okay, you got me. Like you could take me. You have my soul forever. Just give me 10 years." And as the 10 years started approaching, it hit her. Holy crap, I made this pact with the devil. I've survived. My kids are getting ready to go. 10 years is up. And what happens to her in this, and she didn't want to tell me the story because she knows I'm not overly spiritual. We had talked about it ahead of time. And she goes, "I don't think I want to share the story with you because I only share it with a few people, and I don't think you'll believe me." And I said, "Oh, give me a shot. I'll believe you." And I told her a story that maybe cut the ice for why she might be able to, she might think that I could believe her. And when she told me the story, I mean, it still gives me chills. I'm like,
me too.
Wow. What?
Yeah, it was insane because I am very spiritual. And so I also, and have kids. And so I kind of put myself into her situation as I was listening to that. I was like, what would I do in situation? I put myself in, I think, in a lot of the, and I don't want to call them characters. What do you call them?
I call them book participants.
Okay, but because I don't want to say characters because they're real people. The book participants, I put myself in a lot of times in their shoes, and I don't know if everyone does that, but I kind of always do that. That's how I like. I'll be like, okay, what would I do in that situation? And I just remember being so blown away by that because I was like, wow, like, and you knew that she believed so deeply, and that this was something. That she was like, okay, I gave myself to the devil because I just want those 10 years. And I was like, that is so deep and so powerful. And you could feel that she just wanted to have that time with her kids. And I can completely understand that, which I think many people can. So I was, again, that was like, was so blown away by that.
Yeah, thank you. And then you just mentioned, you put people, you want to put yourself in their shoes. The last story, right, is called A Mile in Her Shoes, that about Dieppe. And if you would have met Dieppe, you could still meet her. That's her real name.
Right.
But if you were to meet Dieppe, you would have no idea the depth of what she had gone through escaping Vietnam.
As a kid.
Well, you didn't know. You knew her for a long time.
I knew her for years and didn't even know. I had no idea. One of the last barges out of Vietnam, the night Saigon fell, the mass discrimination that her and her family experienced, the rough times that she had, then to put herself through medical school, become a doctor, become a physician, become an OBGYN, and she walked around as happy as could be. But when she was forced to stop practicing medicine because of her own health issues and her fear that her tumors would turn cancerous, you just, when you spend a mile in her shoes to realize the emotional depth of what she was going through, like I felt like exactly what you said. You want to put and you want to feel like to be them so you can understand them, and that way you might be able to better relate to them, right? And we say that, but like you can't get somebody by hanging out with them even for a few years sometimes, unless you can walk a mile in their shoes. And that's what the stories all do, is allow us to really walk in their shoes, you know?
Yeah. And the other one was, and right, that one blew me away too, because I was like, oh my gosh, just the amount of things that this woman has been through. Like, when is enough's enough, right? And when you are spiritual, it's like, okay, you know, God gives you what you can handle. I truly believe that. But then some people just get so much and they just get banged down and banged down and banged down. And it's like, oh my gosh. The other one was the woman, and this one, like, it killed me. It killed me. Cause again, with kids and stuff, the one that had all the boys that lost the daughter and then had the little girl and then thought she was going crazy. And it turned out to be a brain tumor. That I was hysterical. I was hysterical because I was like, oh my gosh, they finally, every chapter and every book participant really, their story was so powerful and so many different pivots and turns. And David and I have talked about this, and I know I'm going off on a tangent for a second, but so many times when it's your own story, you don't think it's that big of a deal. I've had people say to me like, oh, like your story, oh my gosh. And I'm like, story is like, so compared to like some of these other stories, what are you talking about? I'm pretty normal. Like I'm really a normal person, but there's things that happen to me that someone else thinks is wow, because it didn't happen to them. Right. And they're like, oh, you were dyslexic. So school was hard. You played 2 sports in college. You were on the honor roll in college, realizing later that you were smart and, different pivots. Yes. There's like interesting things, but some of these people, like that woman's story, just, brought me to tears. It brought me to my knees because I was like, oh my gosh. But then the positive, like, spin on it and her positive attitude of being like, I'm not crazy. It's a brain tumor was also like, okay, I understand that too.
Right. So a couple of thoughts real quick is that one, at the beginning of each chapter, I asked people to give me their most positive emotion from their cancer journey.
Yes, I love that.
Emotion from their cancer journey. And the person that referred that story to me said, oh, I got this friend, she's near the end of her life. I didn't get to talk to her, but after she passed away, her husband was open to talking to me. And then I talked to her mom and sisters and whatever. But she said, even though she's at the end of her life, I would say if she had a positive emotion about cancer, it'd probably be gratitude. And I go, oh, get it the hell out of here. That's not possible. Nobody's going to be grateful for having cancer, especially cancer that kills you when you got 6 kids. It's not possible. And she goes, well, I think gratitude is really where it's at. And so when you get into the story, which again, I don't presume to understand what people are going through. Nobody understands me by guessing. Why am I going to guess? And so just to be humbled by the idea, and when you know the story behind it, you believe it. It's the truth, right? But how somebody could be grateful for a situation like that, because framed the way it was and the reality of what they were going through, you understand how gratitude could be a part of a journey. And so, it sounded so shallow to me when I first understood. I'm like, no, no, it's not possible. But now you really understand it. Not only is it possible, it's 100% believable. And that's
and right. The love that her and her husband had, and then the way it was breaking them down. I literally was like, on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my gosh. And I knew, they obviously, you don't talk about it, and I don't want to give too much but this is what you guys will experience in this book. So definitely go out and get Cycle of Lives. And David, this is the other beautiful thing about it. All proceeds go. So explain that too, with the proceeds of the book.
You do a better job than I do.
All 100% of the proceeds go to cancer awareness and research, charities and nonprofit organizations, selected by the book participants. We do special promotions with organizations that want to promote the book themselves, but 100% of all profits go to these organizations. It's something we care deeply about.
Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, so it's like, this is why I also love having these guys on, because there's a real love for for what they have done. So Erin, I also, because I know we're coming to the end and I know we could be on for like 5 hours. And so I'm trying to not go too long, but I also would love for you to give people advice and I know you might be laughing at this, but when what you've gone through with David and this amazing thing that he kind of really created as the spouse, I would love for you to, people that are listening right now, and they maybe have an idea, or maybe they're the spouse of someone that has an idea. Can you give any advice of like how to receive it?
Yeah, well, that's a tough question. I think that you need to receive it with curiosity and love, and what I mean by that is I really can't relate to what he did. I can't put myself in the shoes of why you would want to do that, really, or how you would come to that. But in being open, and I had some opinions, but I tried to be a listener and a support and find out what he needed. I grew through the experience, and our relationship grew through the experience. So I would say being curious, I think, because I'm never going to understand it. I watched it and I'm never going to understand it. But the curiosity, I think, was the key.
I love that. And I think that is so perfectly said. And I really, that just, I think is just sums up. Thank you, Sonia, you guys. I mean, because that is very, very cool. So David, what advice can you give someone that has a crazy idea that they know many people are going to say, don't do it, you're crazy? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah. If somebody had said to me, Juliet, a couple years ago, hey, I have an idea for you. Why don't you go really deep with 15 people and uncover their stories and take the responsibility and the burden of putting their life story in 20 or 25 pages? And then why don't you get on your bike and like bike around the country for 45 days and beat yourself up physically, emotionally, and every other way? I would have looked at him and said, like, get the hell out of my house, dude. Like, what the hell are you talking about? But when it's something that you want to do, and you're not doing it for them, you're not doing it it's because somebody asked you to, because somebody told you to, because somebody expects you to, but you're doing it for you. On a certain level, it kind of just becomes easy. It's like I set the goal. It's like, when you want to go run a 10K, or you want to go do a charitable event or something, and you don't tell anybody, it's easier to back out. But when you tell someone, it's hard to let them down. And if you're looking in the mirror telling yourself, like, dude, you're going to do this thing, don't let anybody down. Like, wow, that's awesome. So I'd say for anybody that has anything that seems like a stretch goal or a way outside of your comfort zone, but you just feel in your heart that you want to do it, I mean, there really aren't any limitations, and there's no reason why you can't do it. So be fortunate enough to find somebody that supports you and go do it.
I'll add, I like to interpret what David says. What spouse doesn't like to do that? I think how I see what lesson I learned, I guess, from seeing him do this stuff is, and he touched on it, is when you believe you want to do it, and you can accept that you believe you want to do it, and you say it out there. He's saying don't let people down, but you look yourself in the mirror and you respect yourself enough to let your own self down, and then lean into it and enjoy the hell out of it. And when people say you're crazy, have fun with it.
I love that. I mean, this together, I really need to meet you guys in person, and I know that will happen one day, but I do want to end with this one part, because I think it is really important. And I, again, want to bring back that David, was talking about that he was not super spiritual, about the 11s.
Oh my gosh. I got to tell a story. See, one of the issues that we have is my stories go on way too long, Juliet. She says, "I get to the point, get to the point."
And no, but I have to pause for a second. The thing that I find fascinating is though that David is in the financial world, and when you know someone in finance, you think that they're very like to the point and this and that. But David is such a creative that like when I tell you when you guys you have to listen to 179 to know what his career is, you're going to be like, wait, this is so like a square fitting in a what is that circle like? But it's so interesting because it does. But so just tell it very short, and then
Okay, I'll tell
we'll
it short. So near the end of my sister's life, she kept seeing all these ones. It's like 111. Whatever. She was just seeing ones everywhere. And she called me up one day and she said, like, I'm seeing these ones. And I don't know if you know this, but I was on the phone when our dad died. I was on the phone with him and he died at 111. And so maybe that's him and looking over me. He's my guardian angel, whatever. And so I was like, that's kind of silly, but okay, I'll let you have that. I mean, how am I going to tell you no? And then after June passed, like literally, like the first grade school classroom my kids had was room 111. And we would go for a bike ride and we went 11.1 miles. And we would come home from a vacation and pull into the driveway and it'd be 11:11. And I'm like, come on, man, that's like completely stupid. And so this was going on forever and it's become this long, drawn out, like 11s must mean, well, okay, in some way, I guess June's looking out for us, right? That's cool. So we write the book and it goes, I write it, I rewrite it. Erin edits it, I rewrite it, I send it to the editor, they rewrite it, back and forth to the publisher, back and forth. They lay it out, the copyright editor. It goes through a million different versions. One day I'm at home working late and I get a call from a text from a friend. He says like, dude, that was pretty cool about June and the 11s. And I go, yeah, good story, right? And she goes, no. Like, it's really cool what you did with it. And I go, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Like what the heck? And she goes, what do you mean? And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, go get your book. I go, yeah. She goes, open it up to the story about the ones. I go, yeah. And she goes, look at the end of the chapter. I go, yeah. She goes, what page is that on? 111.
So crazy. I get like such the chills. So
what? Impossible. I mean, absolutely impossible. When he showed me, it's just chills. It's not possible.
It's impossible to have. I couldn't have contrived that anyway because there's 15 hands on a book, laying it out and changing it and editing which chapter goes where and what story. It's not possible. So I guess you just got to go, okay, all right, I'm just going to be open to what the universe gives me.
Well, and that's the thing. And if anyone looks up, you guys can go like their 1s and 11s are like angel signs. And it really is really cool. Because when David told me about that for like days before I think it was I even interviewed you, and I'm not like into numerology really. I like astrology, universe, like spiritual I am, but I'm not like just, I don't know. I will sometimes look at it and be like, oh, interesting, but I don't know that much about it. But days before I kept seeing 11s and 1s. And I was like, this is so weird. And I actually looked it up. And then David was like, said something about the 11s. And I was like, wait, what did you just say with that? And I hadn't read that chapter yet. Isn't this weird? And I hadn't read the chapter yet. And then he said, my sister with the 11s. And I read it and I was like, holy crap, that's so weird. I literally was having dreams, like vivid dreams about 11s. And there's like I kind of put it to something else. Like I was like, oh, that must be blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, no, that is me just like, the kind of universe, spirit, whatever, solidifying that this David and I need to have this interview or whatever. It was just so freaking cool. And I guess it was June.
Incredible.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. Incredible.
It's crazy.
Well, and I think even in our text chain, I think you've even said, I was like, what is that? Because I've been seeing that, right? I mean.
You know why? Because after we were talking about it, I think like you sent me a note or something and we finished and I go, hey, look what time that text went through. The text went through at 11:11.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think I said to you, I've been seeing 11:11. That's so weird. And you're like, oh, wait until you get it into the book. It was something like that. And I was like
that. And, I mean, there's some people listening that are like, wow, the three of you are stupid as hell because how do you not understand what the heck is going on? Right. But I don't know, maybe we're just fresh souls or something that I'm just like, all right, whatever, and somebody else is like, boy, you guys are dumb. You should know that this is the way of the world. Right. Or whatever.
Right. And then there's also going to be people listening being like, okay, Luna Tunes, what are you guys like? Have you seen your unicorn? Are you riding out on your unicorn?
That's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I just have to say this has been amazing. I'm sorry for the delays in the beginning, but I knew it was going to be so worth it. And I knew the universe was going to make it happen. So, thank you, Erin and David, so much. And truly, I cannot wait to meet you guys in person because I just feel like we are connected. And Erin, even talking to David, I remember asking him so many questions about you. Like, well, okay, when did you meet Erin? When did you guys get married? After watching, reading the book, because I was so curious of the timetable of how it all played out. And it really, you guys are doing some beautiful, beautiful things, and keep it up.
Thank you, Juliet. Really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having us and having me again. It's really a great honor talking to you. I appreciate it.
Yes, and it's going to happen probably so many more times. So and this won't be so glitchy. Everyone, thank you for joining in, whether you're here on LinkedIn, Twitch, or YouTube. Thank you for joining your next stop live on Fireside. Again, thank you so much, David and Erin. And you guys, seriously, go get the book. You can either do it on Audible or you can purchase it, but all the proceeds go to cancer research. I mean, what not? You give it to someone, gift it. It's not a book that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is too emotional. There's so many ups and downs, but it's really a powerful, powerful piece. And so again, thank you guys for joining your next stop live. Enjoy the rest of the week. Oh, good. We got good music going out.